Marina, 42, weathered but strong, with haunted eyes, smells the salt air mingling with the chill of her lukewarm coffee as her phone rings. For the third time this September morning, her fingers tremble as she holds the mug, a familiar reaction after years as a rescue diver. The shrill ring cuts through the quiet of her apartment in Carmel, where she's retreated after leaving the Portuguese Coast Guard, adapted to California Coast Guard. Early retirement at 42 wasn't a choice, but a necessity. Some memories weighed heavier than the ocean depths. She answers on the final ring, already knowing the voice on the other end will change everything. Marina Santos, adapted to Marina Reyes. The male voice has an accent she can't place. My name is Professor Henry Layton, from the University of San Francisco, adapted to University of San Francisco. I need to speak with you about something we found at the bottom of Monterey Bay, adapted to Monterey Bay. The coffee spills through her fingers, burning her skin. Monterey Bay. 25 years later, that name still makes her heart pound, as if she's 40 meters down without enough oxygen. I don't do rescue diving anymore. Her voice is rougher than intended. This isn't about rescue. It's about the 1986 missing persons case. The Cardoso family. Marina closes her eyes and sees their faces again. Miguel Cardoso, adapted to Michael Carter, 35, a history professor. His wife Clara, adapted to Claire, 32, 6 months pregnant. And their son Tomas, adapted to Thomas, only 8. They'd gone out for a boat trip on a sunny August morning and never returned. The boat was found adrift 3 days later, with no sign of life. Marina was only 17 when she participated in the search, still an apprentice, but those dives scarred her soul forever. Did you find something? She asks, though a part of her doesn't want to know the answer. We found them, Marina, all 3, attached to a rusted anchor, 50 meters down. And there's something else, something you need to see in person. His words echo in her mind as she tries to process the information. 25 years. How could the bodies be preserved for so long? And why attached to an anchor? Where exactly? In the area known as Bird Rock, adapted to Bird Rock. Our marine archaeology students were mapping the seabed when, Marina, they're not decomposed. They look exactly as they did in 1986. The phone slips from her hand. Bird Rock was a rocky formation, where she'd dived hundreds of times during the search. How could something like this have gone unnoticed for so long? 2 hours later, Marina drives along the coast road toward Monterey. Adapted to Monterey, her hands sweaty on the wheel of her old car. Adapted to old car. The autumn wind carries the familiar scent of the ocean, but this time it brings with it memories she'd buried deep. She remembers Claire Carter, adapted to Claire Carter, with her sweet smile and rounded belly, excitedly talking about her unborn baby. She remembers Thomas, adapted to Thomas, a curious boy who asked endless questions about fish and coral. And Michael, adapted to Michael, who always talked about the mysteries of American history, adapted to American history, as if he sensed he'd become part of one. The Monterey Bay Research Station, adapted to Monterey Bay Research Station, is bustling when she arrives. University students carry equipment, while experienced divers check oxygen tanks. Professor Layton waits on the dock, a tall man in his 50s, with graying hair and blue eyes that seem to hold secrets. Marina, thank you for coming. He extends a hand, but she notices his fingers tremble slightly. You need to understand, what we found defies any logical explanation. He leads her to a makeshift lab, where underwater photographs are spread across a table. Marina feels the air leave her lungs. There they are, Michael, Claire, and Thomas, exactly as she remembers them, suspended in the crystalline water, as if asleep. They're embraced, Michael shielding his wife and son, all bound by a thick chain to an ancient anchor she's never seen before. How is this possible? She whispers. That's the question. The water in that region has a unique mineral composition due to the underground rock formations. It's rich in salts and minerals that could theoretically have a preservative effect. But this, he points to the photos, This goes beyond the science we know. Marina examines the images more closely. There's something in their facial expressions that disturbs her. They don't look like drowning victims. They look at peace, as if they chose to be there. Professor, is there anything else I need to know? Leighton hesitates, running a hand through his hair. There are old rumors about that region. Stories that local fishermen have told for generations about people who disappear and reappear decades later, without aging. We always thought they were just legends, but now you're not sure. We're not sure of anything. That's why we need you to go down there. You know those waters better than anyone. Marina feels a shiver run down her spine. There's something about the professor's voice that doesn't sound entirely honest. Why her? There are dozens of more experienced divers available. When do we go down? Now, if you're willing. The tide is perfect, and the weather could change at any moment. An hour later, Marina is on the deck of a research vessel, adjusting her diving gear. The neoprene feels like familiar second skin, but her hands tremble as she checks the pressure gauges. It's been 3 years since her last deep dive, since the accident that forced her retirement. The memory of the absolute darkness, the panic, the feeling that she would never see the sunlight again, still haunts her. Marina, Leighton's voice brings her back to the present. There's something you should know before you go down. She turns, her mask already adjusted. What? We received a report from another diver who went down yesterday. He said he heard voices underwater. Human voices, calling for help. Marina's blood ran cold. Underwater voices always signaled decompression sickness, or nitrogen narcosis hallucinations. But the depth at which the bodies were located wasn't sufficient to cause that kind of effect. Where's that diver now? He's hospitalized in Monterey. Apparently he ascended in a panic and suffered an arterial gas embolism. Marina took a deep breath, trying to control her mounting anxiety. Something was wrong with the whole situation, but her curiosity about the Carter family was stronger than her fear. I'm going down, she announced, putting the regulator in. The water was surprisingly clear for that time of year. Marina descended slowly, controlling her breathing and constantly checking her pressure gauge. At 100 feet, the sunlight began to fade, giving way to the familiar blue-gray of the deep. At 130 feet, she switched on her underwater lens. That's when she saw them. The Carter family was exactly as in the photographs, suspended in the water as if time had stopped. But there was something the photos hadn't captured. Their eyes were open, and they seemed to follow her movements. Marina felt a pang of panic, but forced herself to approach. Experienced divers knew that decomposition in cold water could preserve tissues for a long time, and that internal gases could cause the eyes to remain open. It was science, not magic. But as she approached Claire Carter, the pregnant woman turned her head towards her. Marina screamed underwater, losing precious air from the regulator. This was impossible. Absolutely impossible. Dead people didn't move. In 25 years of diving experience, she had never seen anything like it. She swam backward, but the current created by her movements caused the anchor to swing, and the whole family moved, as if dancing a macabre dance on the seabed. That's when Marina noticed something that made her question her own sanity. Claire's belly was moving, as if the baby were still alive inside. At this critical point in the narrative, where reality blurs with the impossible, I want to extend a special invitation to you, who are following this story. If you are feeling the same tension and curiosity that Marina feels at this moment, if you want to discover the darkest secrets yet to come, please subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell, because what you just read is only the beginning of a journey that will challenge everything you believe to be possible. And trust me, you won't want to miss a second of what's to come. Every story we share here is carefully crafted to take you to the limits of excitement and suspense, and your subscription helps us continue creating these unique experiences for you. Now let's return to the seabed, where Marina is about to discover truths that will change her life forever. Marina forced herself to approach again, fighting against all the instincts that screamed for her to surface. There had to be a logical explanation. There had to be. She extended her gloved hand toward Claire's face, and when her fingers touched the woman's skin, it was warm. Impossible. At the depth of 130 feet, any body should be freezing cold. That's when Claire opened her mouth and spoke, her voice perfectly audible underwater. Please, help us. Marina felt as if the world had collapsed around her. People didn't talk underwater. People dead for 25 years definitely didn't talk underwater. She looked around desperately, searching for some explanation, some trick, some elaborate hoax. Michael Carter then opened his eyes and looked directly at her. Marina, you've grown. How did he know her name? How did he recognize her? She was only 17 when they disappeared, a simple apprentice among dozens of divers who participated in the searches. This isn't real, she murmured through the regulator, the words escaping in bubbles that quickly rose to the surface. It's more real than you can imagine, said Thomas, the 8-year-old boy, who should have been 33 if he were alive. We've been waiting for you for so long. Marina checked her pressure gauge. She still had enough air, but her mind was panicking. She needed to ascend. She needed to get out of there. But when she turned to swim toward the surface, she found herself face to face with another diver. It was Professor Layton, fully equipped, swimming towards her with calm and calculated movements. But there was something wrong with his eyes. They had the same glassy quality as the Carters. You can't leave now, Marina. His voice echoed clearly underwater. Not when you're so close to understanding the truth. What truth? She yelled, losing more air. The truth about what really happened in 1986. The truth about why you're the only one who can free us. Marina looked between Layton and the Carter family, her mind struggling to process what was happening. Free you from what? It was Claire who answered, her hand moving to touch her belly, where an impossible love still developed. From our promise, from our pact, from the weight we've carried for so long. What pact? Michael floated closer, his eyes filled with the deep sadness that Marina felt in her heart. We didn't want to die, Marina. We had a whole life ahead of us. Claire was pregnant. Thomas was beginning to discover the world. When the boat started to sink, when we realized there was no hope, we made a pact with something very ancient that inhabits these waters. We promised our souls in exchange for more time. Claire continued, more time together, as a family, forever. But we didn't understand the price, said Thomas, his childish voice laden with a terrible wisdom. We didn't understand that forever meant being trapped between life and death, conscious, waiting. Marina felt nausea rising in her throat. Waiting for what? Waiting for someone who could break the pact, Layton said, circling her like a shark. Someone pure enough, someone who knew our suffering and carried our pain all these years. The realization hit Marina like a punch to the gut. You knew I'd come. We knew you'd feel guilty for not finding us, Claire said gently. We knew you'd carry our weight in your heart, that you'd become a rescue diver because of us, that you'd never forgive yourself for not saving us. Marina's tears mixed with the salt water inside her mask. It was true. All of it was true. For 25 years, she'd blamed herself for not finding the Carter family. She'd dedicated her entire life to saving others because she couldn't save them. She'd given up relationships, a family of her own, a normal life, carrying the weight of those 3 faces on her conscience. How do I break the pact? She asked, though she knew the answer would change everything. Someone has to take our place, Michael said softly. Someone has to carry the weight of the anchor. Marina looked at the rusty anchor that bound them to the seabed. It was ancient, older than any modern boat. It was covered in symbols she didn't recognize, but somehow understood. Symbols of sacrifice, of protection, of eternal love. If I do this, will you be free? We will be free to go on our way, Claire said, placing a hand on her belly. And our daughter will finally be able to be born, even if it's in another plane of existence. Daughter, Helena, Thomas whispered. We named her Helena. She's been waiting so long to meet the world. Marina closed her eyes,
feeling the weight of 25 years of guilt and grief. She dedicated her entire life to saving people. Maybe it was time to save these people too, even if it meant sacrificing herself. What do I need to do? Leighton swam to the anchor and pointed to the shackles binding the family. You need to put this on yourself and release them. But Marina, you need to understand there's no turning back. Once you accept to carry the weight of the anchor, you'll be trapped here forever, or until someone comes to free you. And if no one comes, then you wait, as we have waited. Marina looked at each of the faces before her. Michael, with his eyes full of knowledge and sorrow. Claire, with her maternal kindness even after decades of suffering. Thomas, still a child at heart, but carrying a burden no child should bear. And Professor Leighton, who are you really? She asked the professor. He smiled sadly. I'm the last one before you. I've been here for 60 years, Marina. 60 years waiting for someone pure enough to break my pact as well. The horror of the situation fully settled in Marina's mind. This wasn't just about the Carter family. It was about an endless chain of sacrifices. People choosing to save others at the cost of their own lives and freedom. How many more are there? She asked, looking around in the watery darkness. Many, Leighton said. This part of the ocean is ancient, Marina. Much older than any human civilization. And there are things down here that have existed since before men dreamed of sailing the seas. Marina felt a massive presence moving in the shadows beyond her lantern's reach. Something huge, ancient, that watched and waited. The entity that made the pacts. The thing that collected souls in exchange for time. Why didn't you tell me the truth from the beginning? Because you wouldn't have come, Claire said. And because we needed the choice to be ours. Free will is the only currency this creature accepts. Marina floated there for long moments. The sound of her breathing amplified in the aquatic silence. She could feel the gaze of the ancient thing on her, assessing, measuring her determination. Finally, she reached out toward the shackles. Wait, a new voice said. Marina turned and saw another diver approaching. It was a woman, wearing antiquated equipment, decades old. Her mask was cracked, but her eyes shone with steely determination. Who are you? Marina asked. My name is Isabel. I've been here for 93 years, and I'm here to tell you there's another way. What way? Isabel swam to position herself between Marina and the anchor. We can all go up together, but the price will be different. What price? The creature will be free. Free to leave these waters and seek souls elsewhere. What we keep bound down here will be loosed upon. Marina felt her blood run cold, and that means, it means that thousands, perhaps millions, could die. But we will be free. The choice before Marina was impossible. Save a few souls, and condemn many others, or sacrifice herself to keep an ancient entity trapped at the bottom of the sea. How long have you known about this alternative? She asked. We've always known, Michael admitted. But none of us had the courage to make that choice. None of us wanted to carry the weight of unleashing something so terrible on the world. Marina looked around at all the faces watching her. Generations of people who chose to sacrifice themselves to protect the world from something they didn't even fully understand. It was then that she realized the third option. What if there's no pact? She asked. What if we just go? The silence that followed was absolute. Even the shadowy presence in the darkness seemed to stop moving. What do you mean? Claire asked. What keeps you here is the belief in the past, the fear, the guilt. But what if it's all an illusion? What if the only thing truly keeping you here is your own inability to forgive yourself? Well, Marina swam to the anchor, and before anyone could stop, placed her hands on the shackles. But instead of putting them on herself, she began to release them from the Carter family. The effect was immediate. The water around them began to boil, and a terrible voice echoed from the depths, speaking in a language that predated human words. You accepted the pact. You cannot break the pact. They were a desperate family trying to survive. Marina yelled back into the darkness. They had no true understanding of what they were doing. The pact is invalid. The anchor began to crack in her hands, releasing a golden light Marina had never seen before. The Carter family began to glow with the same light, their bodies becoming translucent. Marina Claire's her voice already fading. Thank you. Take care of Helena for us, Michael said, gesturing to where his wife was. Claire's belly had opened like a flower, and a small bright light floated where the baby should have been. She's yours now, Thomas said, smiling for the first time. She's the daughter you never had. Marina reached out, and the small light floated to her, enveloping her in a feeling of pure unconditional love. It was the child's son, finally free to be born, even if on a different plane of existence. The Carter family began to dissolve into the golden light, their forms becoming one with the surrounding water. Go, Claire said, her voice now only an echo. Go and live. Live for the child you carry. Live for us. Marina looked around and saw that Isabel and Leighton were also glowing, freed by the breaking of the original pact. One by one, other figures emerged from the shadows, dozens of souls who had been held captive by the ancient entity. The creature in the darkness let out a roar of rage that shook the entire water column. But Marina realized its rage stemmed from fear. Without the souls that fed it, without the pacts that kept it strong, it was weakening. You destroyed everything, the voice echoed. Now I will die. No, Marina said, holding Helena's light against her chest. Now you will be free to transform into something better, something that doesn't need to feed on the pain of others. And with those words, Marina began to swim toward the surface, carrying Helena's soul, and followed by the lights of dozens of finally liberated spirits. When she broke the surface, the sun was setting, painting the sky in gold and orange. The research boat awaited her, but when she looked at the deck, no one was there. She swam to the ladder and climbed up, removing her mask and breathing the fresh evening air. Her phone, which she'd left on the boat, rang. It was a text message from an unknown number. Professor Layton could not attend today. The expedition has been cancelled due to inclement weather. Thank you for your understanding. University of San Francisco. Marina looked around, confused. There was no sign that anyone else had been on the boat. Her dry clothes were exactly where she'd left them. It was as if the entire underwater experience had lasted only a few minutes. But in her hands, she still felt the warmth of the small light that was Helena. That night, back in her apartment in Carmel, Marina sat on her balcony overlooking the ocean. Helena's light had manifested as a constant feeling of love and purpose, something she had never experienced before. It wasn't a physical child, but it was real in a way that transcended physical reality. She took her laptop and began researching the Carter family. To her surprise, she found records that their bodies had been found 3 days after their disappearance in 1986. They had been buried in the Monterey Cemetery. Underwater searches had never continued for 25 years. As she remembered, she had only been a local child who watched the rescue operations from afar. Her memories of being a diver, of working for the Coast Guard, of retiring early, all of it seemed hazy now, like a fading dream. But Helena was real. The feeling of unconditional love, of purpose, of maternal responsibility, remained strong in her heart. Marina realized then that her entire experience may have been something other than what she thought. Perhaps it was an opportunity, given by forces she didn't fully understand, to heal wounds she didn't even know she carried. The guilt of not being able to help as a child, the loneliness of a life without true purpose, the emptiness of never having had a family of her own. In the days that followed, Marina found that her life was changing in subtle but profound ways. She enrolled in diving courses, this time not driven by guilt or obligation, but by genuine love for the ocean. She began visiting local orphanages, volunteering to care for children who needed love and attention. And every night, before sleeping, she talked to Helena, not to a physical child, but to the essence of motherhood and love she had brought from the depths. A month later, while recreational diving in the calm waters near Carmel, Marina found something impossible on the sandy bottom. A small golden anchor, no bigger than her hand, softly glowing in the water. When she touched it, She felt a wave of peace and gratitude, as if all the souls she had helped liberate were sending their love and thanks through the ocean. She brought the anchor to the surface and put it on a chain around her neck, not as a weight, but as a reminder. A reminder that sometimes the bravest act is not sacrificing oneself for others, but finding a third option, an option where everyone can be free, where everyone can fly. That night, Marina dreamt of the Carter family. They were in a place bathed in golden light, and Claire held a small girl with bright eyes. "Thank you for taking care of our Helena," Claire said in the dream. "Now she can grow through you, through the love you'll give the world." When Marina awoke, tears were in her eyes, but they were tears of joy. She finally understood that redemption didn't come from personal sacrifice, but from the act of choosing love over fear, hope over despair, life over death. And deep in the ocean, in the dark waters, where ancient entities once made pacts with desperate souls, something new was growing. Not a creature that fed on pain, but something that would blossom from compassion and forgiveness. The weight of the anchor had finally been lifted, not through sacrifice but through transformation. And Marina Rios, who once blamed herself for not saving a family lost at sea, discovered that in freeing them she had freed herself. Helena would grow not as a child of flesh and bone, but as a legacy of love that Marina would carry in all she did. Every life she touched, every child she helped, every moment of compassion she offered the world would be Helena growing, blossoming, living through the adoptive mother who brought her from the depths to the light. And so the anchor that once held lost all its veil, its full up became a symbol of liberation, hanging around the tail of a woman who learned that sometimes saving others means first finding the courage to save herself.